Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we are diving into a story about family, business, and the very fine line between entitlement and outright sabotage. If you've ever dealt with a relative who thinks your professional skills are just a personal favor waiting to happen, this one's for you. This is the tale of my cousin, who thought my highly successful, artisanal catering business was just a hobby I should happily perform for free. And when I said no, well, she decided to try and burn my entire career to the ground, just days before her wedding. I knew I couldn't let that slide. So, I crafted the perfect delivery. You won't believe what was inside the beautiful, 5-tier box I delivered to her reception. Get ready for a delicious dose of professional revenge. My entitled cousin demanded a free 5-tier wedding cake, then tried to sabotage my catering business by posting fake reviews. I replied, I'll deliver it myself. What she opened was not cake. I started my gourmet catering business, Sweet Surrender, 7 years ago with nothing but a beat-up stand mixer and a huge amount of debt. Now, we are one of the most sought-after bespoke wedding caterers in our state. We specialize in high-end, custom cakes and dessert tables. This isn't just baking, this is structural engineering, artistry, and culinary science all rolled into one. My reputation is everything, and thankfully, it's built on years of flawless execution and stunning, delicious results. Enter my cousin, Becca. Becca and I have never been close. She's the definition of an entitled princess. Growing up, everything had to revolve around her. If she didn't get her way, she'd throw a tantrum, and unfortunately, my aunt and uncle always rewarded her bad behavior by giving in. This pattern continued into adulthood. Becca is 28, has never held a stable job, and expects everyone to bend over backward for her because she's, well, Becca. When she got engaged to a sweet, but slightly clueless, man named Mark, I expected the typical entitled behavior. I figured she'd ask for a family discount. What I didn't expect was the sheer audacity of her request. She called me about 8 months out from the wedding. So, Sweet Surrender is going to do our cake, she chirped, without even asking if I was available. I checked my calendar, luckily, that Saturday was open. That sounds lovely, Becca. Do you want to set up a consultation to discuss flavors and design? I asked, pulling up my pricing sheet. Our average wedding cake starts around $1,500, and Becca is known for extravagance. Oh, no consultation needed, she said, practically licking her lips over the phone. I already know exactly what I want. It has to be 5 tiers. A different flavor on each level, red velvet, raspberry lemon, chocolate truffle, something salted caramel, and the top tier has to be gluten-free for my bridesmaids. It needs to be covered in imported Italian sugar flowers, the really detailed ones, and I want a custom sculpted groom topper that looks exactly like Mark. I did some quick mental math. That's a 5-tier, custom sculpted, multi-flavor cake. Plus the sugar work, which takes days. My professional estimate? At least $2,800, maybe more, depending on the number of flowers. Becca, that sounds beautiful, but that's a very complex order. We'd need to discuss the timeline and budget. For a cake of that scope, we're looking at around $2,500 to $3,000, I explained gently. There was a pause. A very long, dramatic pause. Budget, she finally squeaked, her voice rising several octaves. What budget? Your family, honey. You're doing it for free. I felt my blood pressure rise. I've handled a lot of entitled clients, but this was my cousin. Becca, you know this is my business, right? I have staff to pay, ingredients to buy, commercial kitchen space, and insurance. I can't just give away $3,000 worth of specialized labor and materials. I can offer you a family discount, maybe 15%, but I absolutely cannot do it for free. She started screaming into the phone. This is ridiculous. I am your cousin. This is supposed to be your wedding gift. You're making millions, what's a cake to you? You're so selfish. Making millions? I drive a modest sedan and haven't had a proper vacation in 3 years. She genuinely believes that because I charge professional rates, I'm swimming in money. I tried to reason with her. Becca, my full wedding gift to you will be a gift certificate for a weekend couples getaway, and I'd be happy to bake a small, single-tier cake as a personal gift. But I can't provide the main reception cake for free. She refused to listen. You are just an awful person. How dare you treat family this way? I'm going to tell Mom and Dad how you treat me. She hung up before I could reply. I immediately called my fiancé, Mark, different Mark, and relayed the conversation. He just sighed. Becca being Becca. Ignore her. She'll move on to bullying the florist. I thought that was the end of it. The next week, my aunt called me. She didn't scream or yell, but the tone was thick with disappointment. Emily, I really wish you'd reconsider. It's Becca's big day. Surely you can spare one cake? I stuck to my guns, explaining the cost breakdown and how damaging it would be to my small business. My aunt just muttered something about me being too corporate now and hung up. Becca ended up booking a cheap, mass-produced sheet cake from a grocery store bakery. And I promptly forgot about the drama until 4 days before her wedding. That Tuesday, I woke up to an emergency call from my office manager, Jen. Emily, you need to check our Yelp page and Google reviews. Right now. My stomach clenched. I rushed to my computer. Overnight, my business had been hit by a coordinated, relentless wave of one-star reviews. Not just 10 or 20, but over 40 reviews, all posted within a few hours. The reviews were brutal and specific. They claimed I was unprofessional, that my cakes were dry, that I overcharged and then cancelled orders last minute. But the ones that made my blood run cold were the ones referencing Becca's situation, only heavily twisted. The owner, Emily, is greedy and rude. She tried to extort her own family member for a wedding cake and then refused to do it when they couldn't afford her outrageous prices. She only cares about money. One said, they promised me a lavender cake and delivered gray mush. And then they shouted at my mother. All obvious lies, all libelous, and all threatening my reputation. Jen had already traced the source of some of the IPs. Guess who? Becca. She'd clearly enlisted her entire entourage of entitled friends and family to join her digital sabotage campaign. She was actively trying to destroy my business. This wasn't just a petty family spat anymore, this was an attack on my livelihood. I had 15 full-time employees and dozens of booked weddings. A reputation hit like this could seriously damage my business. I called my lawyer immediately. He advised sending a cease and desist and contacting the platforms, but deleting 40+ reviews takes time, and the damage was already done. The wedding was Saturday. The local wedding industry is small and gossip travels fast. I spent the next 2 days in a panic, trying to mitigate the damage, responding to concerned clients, and fighting the platforms to take down the fraudulent reviews. I felt exhausted, angry, and betrayed. My own cousin was doing this to me. Friday night, the night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I was staring at my kitchen ceiling, fuming, when I realized something. Becca didn't just want a free cake, she wanted control. She wanted to punish me publicly for saying no. And she was going to get away with it if I just fought her in the courts. That wasn't enough. She deserved a public humiliation that matched the scale of her malice. I needed to deliver the perfect response. I got out of bed and went straight to my commercial kitchen. I had 18 hours until her wedding reception. I called Jen, explained the plan, and pulled my best sculptor, Maria, out of bed. We're making a cake, I told them. The most beautiful, 5-tier creation you have ever seen. And it has to be delivered at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow night. They looked confused, but they trust me implicitly. The next morning, we worked like maniacs. We didn't bake a cake. We built a monument. We constructed 5 perfectly smooth, towering tiers, but instead of cake, they were reinforced with structural foam and covered in layers of pure white fondant. It was flawless. The sugarwork was meticulous, delicate white roses and lilies, all hand-painted with iridescent luster dust. The total height was almost 4 feet. It looked exactly like the $3,000 masterpiece she'd demanded. It was magnificent. The perfect decoy. Then came the interior. In the center of the third tier, we inserted a small, elegant wooden display case with a clear glass front. And inside that case, instead of cake, we placed a pristine white envelope containing my lawyer's official, notarized response to her campaign. This wasn't just a cease and desist, this was a formal notice of libel and defamation, demanding full public retraction of all reviews, documentation of all her IP addresses, and a $10,000 settlement for damages. We had also screenshotted every single defamatory review and all of her related social media posts, printing them onto professional archival paper. We carefully stacked these printouts, secured by a silver ribbon, inside the empty bottom tier. The top tier contained one single, magnificent sugar rose. And nothing else. I called my aunt, sounding completely distraught. "Aunt Karen, I'm so sorry. I know I said I wouldn't do it, but I just couldn't live with myself knowing Becca didn't have the wedding cake she dreamed of. I know it's last minute, but I've made her one. It's my gift to the family. I'm delivering it myself at 7:30 tonight." My aunt completely melted, overjoyed that her spoiled daughter had finally gotten her way. "Oh, Emily. You're an angel. I knew you'd come through. I'll be there, I promised. And I'm bringing my camera, I want a picture of her face when she sees it." 7:15 p.m. Saturday. The reception was being held at a beautifully restored estate downtown. I arrived in my professional, logo-emblazoned van, accompanied by Mark, who was dressed in a suit and armed with a high-quality video camera. We wheeled the massive, stunning cake box into the ballroom. It drew every eye in the room. Becca's cheap sheet cake was currently sitting sadly in a corner, untouched. The DJ immediately announced that the bride's cousin, Emily from Sweet Surrender, had just surprised the happy couple with a spectacular, custom 5-tier wedding cake. Becca, wearing a ridiculously voluminous white dress, practically shrieked with delight. She rushed over, throwing her arms around me. "You came through. You always come through. I knew you loved me." She didn't sound grateful, just smugly victorious. She quickly dismissed the waiters trying to help me, insisting she would cut the ribbon herself to preserve the moment. The cake looked perfect on the display table. Guests gathered around, phones held high, waiting for the cutting ceremony. Mark positioned his camera perfectly. I stood back, smiling serenely as Becca and Mark approached the magnificent fraud. Becca, eager to show off her victory, dramatically cut the ribbon with a silver knife. "I can't wait to see the details," she cooed. She was aiming for the third tier, the one with the small display window. As the knife sliced through the heavy fondant, the entire top half of the structure was designed to lift slightly, revealing the interior of the third tier. Becca's face went from victorious smugness to utter confusion. Instead of cake, there was a glass window, and inside, a pristine white envelope clearly labeled, "Becca and Mark, Notice of Libel and Defamation." The music, which had been loud and festive, seemed to fade into a whisper. A few guests gasped. Becca stared, paralyzed, as I stepped forward, perfectly calm. "Happy Mother's Day, Becca," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the silent ballroom. "And thank you for giving me the opportunity to deliver this important message personally." She finally lunged for the envelope, tearing it open. As she scanned the document, Mark, who was standing beside her, looked utterly bewildered. A few guests started murmuring. I then addressed the crowd, my voice projected clearly, ensuring everyone could hear the story behind the spectacle. I kept it professional, avoiding emotional outbursts. "I apologize for the disruption. This beautiful display was created to address a professional matter that, regrettably, involves the bride. I pointed to the bottom tier. In the bottom section, you will find a full, documented account of a recent, coordinated attack on my business, Sweet Surrender, involving over 40 fraudulent reviews and social media posts, all orchestrated by the bride after I declined her request for a $3,000 complimentary service. Becca, realizing I was speaking to her entire wedding party, started shaking her head violently. No. She's lying. This is a jealous attack. I simply held up a printed screenshot. This is a direct, notarized copy of the demand letter from my attorney. The terms are simple: a full, public retraction of all lies, and a financial settlement for the damage caused to my company's reputation. And, I paused for the final punch, should this case proceed to court, the evidence includes IP addresses and social media logs confirming the source of the campaign. I looked directly at Mark, her new husband, who looked like he was about to faint. Mark, I truly wish you the best. You deserve happiness and honesty. Then, I gave a small nod to Mark, my Mark, who turned off the camera. We quietly wheeled the now exposed structure out of the ballroom, leaving the scent of expensive sugar flowers and the stench of ruined reputation behind us. The aftermath was immediate and complete. Becca's parents rushed over, furious, demanding I stop. I simply handed my aunt a card with my lawyer's contact information. I suggest you read the documents before you call me again. By the time I was halfway home, my phone started buzzing. Not with Becca's calls, but with texts from my employees, who had been following the unfolding drama via wedding guests' Instagram stories. The entire local catering community was already sharing the story. Far from ruining my reputation, the bold move solidified it. People admired the professional, zero-tolerance approach to libel. Becca and her new husband had an argument so loud it apparently shut down the party early. Later that week, I heard from Mark. He apologized profusely, telling me he had no idea about Becca's campaign against me. He had been horrified when he saw the documents. He immediately forced Becca to take down all the reviews and post a carefully worded retraction written by my lawyer. The settlement was paid, though grudgingly. My aunt and uncle eventually sent me a long email, not apologizing for their daughter, but admitting they were disappointed in the way I handled it. I didn't respond. I didn't need their approval. I just needed my business to be safe. And it was. My lawyer managed to get the fake reviews removed within the week, and we actually saw a spike in bookings from people who wanted to support the catering queen of revenge. And Becca? She's currently living off Mark's salary, and last I heard, she's posting about how stressful marriage is and how she misses her single freedom. I just sip my tea and smile, knowing she'll always remember the most beautiful non-cake she ever received. What a perfectly executed, cold-blooded act of professional revenge. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes, the most effective revenge is served up with elegance and indisputable receipts. Now, I want to hear your thoughts. Was the narrator's public humiliation of her cousin justified, or should she have handled it privately? And what did you think of the non-cake delivery? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of justified professional revenge, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another video. See you in the next one.